Alright, in this video I'm going to be showing you how to fix the Cue screen on all the Cadillacs that have a Cue screen. Now the brackets on the side might be different a little bit, but you'll basically use the 7mm to remove the 4 bolts. Most of the time there will be actually 6 bolts, but they're all 7mm that you have to remove first, basically to free the radio from the brackets. So once you unscrew those, it releases the plastic from coming out, and then you just slide back towards yourself, and then you can lift up. Then you're going to want to do that on both sides. So once you do that, you'll use a slightly bigger screwdriver. Basically, you're just going to be working with 2 different sets of bolts. It's either going to be, or screws actually, the bigger screws right there, and then there's 6 more of the same kind of screws that you're going to be removing. So now that those are removed, everything else is going to be these smaller screws, so you can keep these in a separate pile. So once you remove those, you can take the piece off, and then be careful with all the ribbon cables. You do not need to unplug any of those. And then that little piece, that's for the USB that you've unplugged. So it's hard to see in the video, but in there there's a little screw that you're going to want to loosen. Don't fully remove it. You just want to loosen it, and it basically will release that bottom cubby later once we unscrew it, for it to freely pop out. And an important note, don't forget to tighten those on the way back when we put it all together, but I'll show you and remind you. So here you're going to be removing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 screws, and these are all going to be the same ones. Once you've removed those, then there's these little side tabs that you can pop out, and that bottom cubby, you should be able to release it. I find it easier to open the door, and you can do it, and it's not going to damage it. And then you can just remove it just like that. Now what that does is it exposes the only ribbon cable that you're going to have to remove. So go ahead and use something small to pry open that little latch up, and then you can pull the ribbon cable out. Now this is really important. It's going to be hard to do it wrong, but the connections, you're going to want those to be facing down towards the motherboard. Now here's the screws that you're going to have to remove to actually remove the screen off of the radio. And then here is the replacement touchscreen. Now this is going to fix all the issues that most of these are having. So unresponsive touch, or if it looks like someone punched your screen, that's just the gel coating that's drying out. This, even though it looks the same, is actually designed slightly differently, so it will never have that issue. So it's a permanent solution versus going with a dealer, and they'll try to replace it with basically the same faulty one. But yeah, once you unscrew all the screws, you can feel free to remove it like that. I like to do it upside down like that just to reduce any kind of dust. And then don't forget to peel the little film off, otherwise you'll kind of have a glare. And then you can just slide that right back in the same hole. And then there's basically 3 little dowels, but up top there's just 1 dowel. You'll want to push that in. Basically just kind of aligns that area. And then you can put those little screws back in there. So you're just going to want to squeeze it together, push it together, and then tighten firmly. You don't want to over tighten because you are working with plastic. But just snug until it stops turning. And then in those 2 areas there's also dowels, and you'll see what I'm talking about once it's in front of you. But you want to align those dowels and then screw those in. Same thing on the other side. And then up top there's 4 bolts, or 4 screws. So same thing. Just want to tighten those down. And then you're going to want to be really careful not to damage the ribbon cable, but you'll remove it from that little area. Slide it in, make sure it's seated all the way in, and until it doesn't go any further left, and you'll feel it just stops going, and then you want to close that little latch door all the way down and make sure it's secure. Sometimes I like to push down with a little screwdriver just to make sure it's secure. And that's it. Now it's time for reassembly. So here I just wanted to show you all the different, so that's the ribbon cable. They're going to be plugging in, but those are the locations of the screws. So you just want to make sure that you get all those, and you can use this screen, the old screen that you removed, for reference to make sure you got all the screws back in. Now for the cubby, you just want to align it, and it'll click in place, and then you just push down a little bit, you'll feel a click, and it's actually clicking into those little side bolts that we partially unscrewed, so I want to remember to screw those back in. And then here we're just going to be screwing in those 7 or 8 screws. And then you can kind of adjust the door to where it kind of gets out of the way so you can do those screws. Alright, so yeah, here I'm just tightening down the screws that were halfway loosened. And then there's one more on the other side. Alright, with that tightened up, we can put the main plastic piece back, but don't forget the little USB connector, and it only goes one way in, so then slide that top piece right over. And also don't force it. There are little basically it only goes in one way, and but you'll see. Just make sure it's on there snug. So the screws that I'm doing now, all of these have been the same screws, but the side one and the other 6 ones are the only ones that are different. You'll tell they have like a bigger head, and they actually use a bigger screwdriver to drive those in. Now we're going to put the side pieces on. So I'll line the 3 little spots, push it in place, and then you can use the 7mm bolts to screw those in, and then tighten it down. And after you do that on both sides, you're all set. You're ready to put it in the car. There are 2 different radio types. They look identical. There's an older generation and newer, but I'm going to have a screen in the link down below that you can use. And basically it works for both older and newer body styles, and that's actually the screen that I'm using in this repair as well. But if you have any questions, feel free to comment down below. I'll be happy to answer it. And yeah, this will save you about $2,000.